Don't have to be fixed. Yeah, I did. You know, I saw him go last week, so I that would have looked at it.
I thought they said troublemaker. But I see troublemaker. But I want to hear you go on you today. All right, everybody take a seat. Let's get this thing started. We got a lot to do, a lot to cover. You guys, if you need to use the restroom, it is through this door, up the stairs, and to the right. All right, this is new for some of us, and some of us have been here. So welcome to the Royal Oak Area Dem Club. It's called Royal Oak Area Dem Club because it includes Clawson. So we're glad to be in Clawson, glad to have Clawson people involved. Let's keep that momentum going. I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Carl Laubach. I'm the chair. Right back there at the AV table is Mike James. At the registration table is Debo, and Lisa Mason is right over there. She's our secretary. So we're going to start out with a quick breakout question.
Before you do that, I need to make the announcement.
Yeah.
If you need restrooms, they are through this door. You're going to go up the half light and to the right. Do not use the ones that are over in this section. Those are under contract with the daycare center, and so we have to follow a state regulation. But we have restrooms right through here.
Thank you so much. All right, breakout question. We're going to split into 4 groups. Let's split this section down the middle and that section about down the middle. And this is your breakout. We're going to talk a little bit for about 3 or 4 minutes. And then one person's going to tell us what you came up with as a group. Ready? So this is a way for you guys to get to know each other. Question is, what is the one worry you have about Trump and what he is doing right now? You got 3 minutes. Go ahead. Talk amongst yourselves.
Can you read the whole cat? I don't think. Instead of before. When you're.
Think if I talk loud.
You can try it.
I'll try it.
All right, let's wrap it up. All right, who's got a really good one? What is the one worry you have about Trump and all he is doing right now? Who's got a good idea right now? Sharlan, please stand up. Banning the rule of law. Anybody else? Tom?
It's not really a worry, it's a near certainty that they're not going to recognize the results of the elections next year.
Does that seem like the, yeah, so that would be a breaking point for Democrats, you think? If we can't vote anymore, is that a breaking point for Democrats? Mike, what else you got to add? Stealing control of the military, absolutely, another tragedy. All right, guys, let's get our meeting started. So we have all the way from the western side of the state to introduce himself to us is we have a candidate for Michigan Attorney General, Mark Totten. Come on up, Mark. Or use if you want. All right.
So thanks so much, Carl. Let me ask, I can use the mic, but if I talk this loud, can you all hear me or no? Use the mic, okay, I will.
Turn it on.
Is it on?
Turn it on right now. Yep. Try this.
And I can stand right here?
Yeah, you should be able to stand. It doesn't
Okay.
matter.
Is that better? Can you all hear me okay? Okay, it's really great to see you all. My name is Mark Totten. I'm running for Attorney General. I want to say thanks to Carl, to all of you for being here. It's a great crowd here this morning. And I want to just start out, and it reflects what I just heard, the comments that were said. I just want to say what we all know. We are living right now in quite a moment. It is a dangerous and unprecedented moment in modern American history. And I just want to say that if I am privileged to be the next Attorney General of Michigan, my number one priority will be to use every power I have in that office to stop Donald Trump. And I'm grateful to Dana Nessel, who's been leaning in and leading that fight. I think that's exactly what we need to be doing right now. So let me share a little bit about my background, why I decided to run, what it looks like if I'm the next Attorney General, and then I would love to take some questions if you all have them. So a little bit about my story. I was born and raised in Kalamazoo. My mom was a first grade teacher in the Kalamazoo Public Schools for 30 years. She was an MEA member. She was a single parent. My dad was a long distance truck driver. And I've held a lot of jobs as a lawyer. And I'll mention to you that I decided to become a lawyer a little bit later in my educational path, in part because I saw the work of my wife, Kristen. She was a lawyer before I was. And for many years, she worked for the Michigan ACLU. She ran their Flint water litigation. on behalf of children, excuse me, children with disabilities to make sure they got what they needed in the schools. While I'm talking about my family, I'll mention my son Jake is a junior in high school. My daughter Grace is a freshman at U of M. And I started out at the Justice Department in Washington, D.C. I was there for just a short time. Within 2 years, we moved back home to Michigan, and I spent about a decade at MSU. I was teaching at the law college. And then in 2018, I had the opportunity to go in a bit of a different direction career-wise. And I'll tell you a little bit about that story. It still makes me smile. So we live near a Meijer grocery store, right? So it would have been like, it was like late in the afternoon one day, like June of 2018. And I'm walking into Meijer and I get a text message from a friend of mine named Zach. All right. Zach is running communications on the campaign of a former state senator who's running for governor in 2018. And he says, we want to know if you will play Bill Schuette in debate prep. And you remember that guy, Bill Schuette? Of course you do. And I smiled. I knew why they were asking me. And I responded. I said, I'd love to do it. And so on 4 different occasions for about 2 hours each, I sparred with Gretchen Whitmer to help her get ready for her first debate with Bill Schuette. In fact, she invited me to the first debate. It was in Grand Rapids at Wood TV Studio 8. I was in the audience. She comes up to me right away afterwards and she says, first of all, she says, it was crazy how much you sounded like that guy. I'm not going to do my Bill Schuette impression. And then she said, you were way harder than Bill Schuette, which of course is exactly what you want, right? When you're preparing somebody for a debate. The short of all that is when she got elected, she asked me if I would serve as her chief legal counsel. And I did that for her first 4 years. And it was quite a 4 years, as you all will know. Like, we've got a global pandemic. Nobody saw that coming, right? We've got militia members that were trying to kidnap and kill the governor. It just felt like one thing after another. There were 100 things that I would love to tell you about that I was able to work on. I'm going to tell you just about one thing, all right? So on March 17th of 2021, the U.S. Supreme Court put out a little notice saying that it was going to hear a case called the Dobbs case. And I knew where that might go, right? I knew that this Supreme Court might do something that I have never seen in modern U.S. history. And that is to actually take away a constitutional right. And so that day, I started to get to work. I started to build a legal team. I started to craft legal strategy. I went to the governor and I said, I want to put you in a position to file a lawsuit to protect reproductive freedom all across the state. And you all saw the fruits of that effort. She was the first in the nation to proactively file a lawsuit and protect reproductive freedom all across the state until, of course, Prop 3 was passed and those rights went into the Michigan Constitution. I left her office in early 2022, not because I was looking for an exit ramp, but President Biden nominated me to serve as the United States Attorney for the Western District of Michigan. Some of you will know what U.S. attorneys are. My guess is probably a lot of you have kind of heard that and you're not quite sure. So let me just say quickly, the U.S. attorney's offices are essentially the field office for the Department of Justice, all right? There are 94 of these districts around the U.S. We have 2 in Michigan, the Eastern, and you're sitting in it, and then the Western, and that's what I was over, right? All of the UP, the Western half of the Lower Peninsula, 34 or 49 counties. And I was the chief federal law enforcement officer across that swath of Michigan. And it was an amazing opportunity. Every single day, I had the privilege of like trying to figure out how I could protect communities. And that meant protecting children from predators, right? One of the biggest cases we had was a horrible, awful case that involved the loss of a 17-year-old named Jordan DeMay from Marquette, Michigan, who was the victim of a sextortion scheme that was being run out of another country. And we were able to follow those digital breadcrumbs all the way back to Nigeria, figure out who did it, and to secure the first extradition ever from Nigeria in a place where there was a sense that you could do these crimes all day long and never be held accountable. And to start educate young people as well about the dangers that are on cell phones. We did work around protecting seniors from fraud, multiple dozens of cases that involve criminal networks, often overseas, but not always, where older folks were the targets. And if you have a cell phone, let's roll my cell phone. That was not planned, but I got your attention, didn't I? So we had, I'm sorry, I scared you. We had dozens of these lawsuits. I mean, you get these text messages, right? All day long, probably. We had one victim up in Lake County who had somebody reach out and say they were part of the FBI and that her bank account had been compromised and that she needed to turn over all of her money. And somebody showed up that looked like an FBI agent. And she handed over $400,000, everything she had. And we were able to figure out who did it and to hold them accountable. We did important work around civil rights. I prosecuted multiple white supremacists across the district who committed hate crimes. And then we did work around public corruption as well. You perhaps saw our case against former Speaker of the House, Rick Johnson, who as chair of the Michigan Medical Marijuana Licensing Board was just pulling in bribes hand over fist. And we were able to hold him accountable. I stepped down from that job on Inauguration Day, so January 20th of this year. And I still remember that day. You might remember it too. It was rainy. It was of all day, it was a federal holiday, right? Of all days, it was MLK Day. And I remember driving up to Grand Rapids. My office was empty because of the holiday. I packed up my stuff. I left my keys and my badge, or not my badge, my ID on my desk. And then I started driving the 47 minutes back home to Kalamazoo, really starting to wrestle with what am I going to do next? I didn't have anything really figured out. And here's what happened. And it's not unique to me. It was the experience that all of you felt of every single day, seeing things happen that I just never thought I would see happen in the United States of America. And then feeling this burning desire that I know this group feels as well, that I wanted to do something about it. And I finally decided that the best thing that I could do is to run for Attorney General, because I think state AGs are on the very front lines of fighting back. They have the ability to get into court like nobody else can. And I want to lead that fight. I've already told you my number one priority. Let me say something about number two, and that is to try to fill the gaps that have been left by the fact that federal law enforcement, the kinds of work I did the last 3 years, has just walked away in so many key areas. That certainly means protecting workers, right? You all saw what the president did to the NLRB, the National Labor Relations Board, illegally fired one of the Democratic members. Now they don't have a quorum. They can't meet for the next 4 years. And so they can't do their important work of protecting workers. I want to step in and do as much as I can to enforce state law, good laws that we have to protect working people. I want to protect civil rights. I mean, gosh, not only is that work not happening, it's even worse than that. It's the Civil Rights Division that I worked very closely with at DOJ, the Department of Justice, has been weaponized against the very people it is supposed to protect. Now, the good news here is that we have a strong state civil rights law called the Elliott-Larsen Civil Rights Act. And it will give me all the power I need to be able to step in and protect civil rights at this critical moment when our president is targeting vulnerable communities. And then the last thing I'll mention in terms of like gap filling is work around protecting consumers. It's an issue I'm actually really passionate about. It's protecting folks who are cheated by corporations that refuse to play by the rules. You all know what the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau is, the CFPB. Whose big idea was that? That's right, Elizabeth Warren. She actually wrote about it in the Harvard Law Review when she was a law professor, and it was this rare moment where like a great idea actually made it through Congress into law. This organization has returned $21 billion to cheated consumers over the last 12 years, and it is all but dead, right? So there's no cop on the federal beat anymore. Let me share a story with you that just was such a reminder to me about why this work is so important. My dad passed away about 7 or 8 years ago, right? And my stepmom is somebody that I would consider to be a vulnerable adult, all right? I help her with her finances. I have access. I can see her checking account, money coming in and out. I give her advice from time to time. And I went to her like 6 months ago and I said, you're paying like $250 a month to Xfinity for your cable bill. And I said, I just think that's a little above your means. I said, why don't you call them and try to get a lesser package? And so she says she'd take care of it. She comes back to me 2 weeks later and she said, I was able to do it. And from what she said, it sounded like her bill would be 40% less. I said, great. And then like, just almost accidentally, she mentions as we're ending the conversation, she says, oh, by the way, they told me I had to get a cell phone and a plan to do it. And I'm like, did you do that? And she said, yeah, it'll be here tomorrow by FedEx. All right. Here's the thing. My stepmom already had a cell phone and a plan, and now she has another one that's coming tomorrow. So then I turn to help her get out of this mess. And do you know how long it took me to do that? And I'm a little sophisticated at these kinds of things. Like it took me 4 weeks and hours and hours and hours. And what I realized is that at every step of the way, this company had designed its process to make people like my stepmom want to do what? Just give up, right? And lose their money. Now, do people like my stepmom then go hire a lawyer to help them? Why not? It's not worth it. Right. Economically, it doesn't even make sense, right? Lawyers cost $100-200 more an hour. Like most people cannot afford that. But there is one lawyer in Michigan who can step in without being asked and without being paid by cheated consumers and fight for them. And that is the AG, who can bring a lawsuit on behalf of tens, thousands, hundreds of thousands of people across the state, team up with other AGs across the nation and hold corporations accountable. And that job is more important than ever. Let me wrap up by saying this. I want to say a word about process. Some of you will know this, but my guess is maybe a lot of you don't. Nobody is going to vote for their attorney general, the person they want to be the Democratic nominee for attorney general at a precinct, right? And that's because we don't technically have primaries. Under state law, both parties have a convention. It's a one-day convention. It's going to happen on April 19th of next year. It's going to be in Huntington Place. And anybody who is a member of the party 30 days in advance and actually shows up in Detroit can cast a ballot. It's a proportional voting system. So let me pick a different county. Let's say Gogebic County, right on the Wisconsin border. Let's say Gogebic has, I'm making this up, but like 20 allocated votes. And let's say 2 people from Gogebic County drive the 11 hours to get to Detroit. They will each cast effectively 10 votes, right? It's meant to make sure every county has a say. And so I'll say what you would expect me to say. I want to earn your support. And you all will make up your mind. But if I can, let me just say something about the case for me. I think it's 2 things. One, I think I am best prepared to lead. I've had the ability as an attorney to serve in some of the highest places in state and federal government as a lawyer at a moment when our biggest threat is the federal government. And I think that has really prepared me to hit the ground running. And the second thing I'll just say is I think I'll be a strong candidate in the general election for this race and for our statewide ticket. I'll just say I'm sitting in Southeast Michigan. I'm from Kalamazoo. Thank God for Southeast Michigan, which is 50% of the Democratic base across the state. But we also all know that in our purple state, in a non-presidential year, we've got to do better in all of Michigan, including red and rural places. And what I bring to the table is I represented not 1, but 49 counties, that vast swath of outstate Michigan. And I showed up in every single county. I sat down with every elected prosecutor, every sheriff. They're almost all Republicans. I built relationships. I didn't compromise my values, but I did my job to help protect their communities. I don't think any of them are going to say, vote for a Democrat. I think many of them will say Mark was a strong partner with our community. And I think that's a real plus to trying to win this office in a contested race. So I'm going to end there. Last thing I'll just say is if you don't have one, I'll get one to you. But most of you, I think I gave one of these pledge cards. Here's how I'm using these. It's really helpful for me to know if you're willing to support me. And if you're willing to do that, even today, you can either fill that out and hand it to me and I'll be around for a while, or there's a QR code on the back, which you can scan and do all of it online. And if you're willing to support me, I would be so grateful, and it'd be really helpful if you could let us know. So with that, I'll stop. And if there are questions, my guess is there probably are, I would be happy to take them. Yeah.
You mentioned protected workers first.
Yeah.
Yes, when you're fighting. I agree with this. Is there anything you can do about wage theft as a state attorney general? Because that's probably the biggest crime happening.
Yeah.
Punished in Michigan and across.
Yeah, for sure. So the Attorney General created a payroll fraud, wage theft unit. I can't remember, back in 2019, 2020, AG Nestle did. And one, that was a really important thing to do. And I think that was the right step structurally to have people within the AG's office that are focused on that kind of work. I think what we need to see more of is we need to see more enforcement actions. You know, the laws that we have on the books are only as strong as the degree to which they're enforced, right? You can have the strongest laws on the books, and if they are not enforced, they just don't mean anything. And there has, you know, any kind of enforcement is always a drop in the bucket in terms of what's actually happening, but you got to have enough of the right cases that are big and that send a message to people that want to cheat that there is a consequence for doing so. And I think we've got a little bit further to go before there is that before that happens. For example, there is widespread what we call worker misclassification, where you have contractors in, say, the building trades area that are hiring people as independent contractors that under the law really should be classified as employees. And that hurts companies that play by the rule. It hurts taxpayers because we're losing out on important income. And it definitely hurts the workers who are not getting the compensation that they deserve. And so I think that has to be the number one focus, is just trying to build more cases to address those issues. Thanks for the question. Yes.
My question is about what's currently happening in Dearborn as Attorney General. Is there any jurisdiction over what's going on? Supposedly the FBI is raiding homes in Dearborn. You know, they say they broke up a terrorist organization, but to do what? And how true is it? Is it real information or isn't it?
Yeah.
And are they in contact with the Michigan Attorney General or the governor?
A couple of thoughts about that. I know that what my understanding just from public reporting is that there was some kind of action. I think it was yesterday morning, maybe it was the day before, but I think it was yesterday morning. I think all I saw about it was that Kash Patel tweeted about it, that it was described as terrorism related, and that the governor was briefed. But I don't know anything else besides that. So let me just speak more generally about what the state attorney general can do at a moment where we are seeing very questionable tactics by ICE, by DHS, and we're also seeing the threat of the president sending the military right into our cities. And God forbid that ever would happen here in Michigan. So let me just say a couple things there. So first of all, you know, the conduct of federal law enforcement and what they do in these raids, whether it's ICE or Border Patrol, whatever it is, all the FBI, any of the federal agencies, it's all regulated under the Fourth Amendment and its protections around searches and seizures. And, you know, we saw a case play out in California where a district court judge reviewed what ICE was doing in LA and came back and said, like, you are targeting people based on the color of their skin and upon their jobs, and just thinking those are a proxy for illegality. Right. And the judge said that's a clear violation of the Fourth Amendment. And I would say the exact same thing. The Supreme Court put a pause on that decision, which I think is deeply disturbing. And it's temporary, and we'll have to see where they go. But I'll just say, if I'm the attorney general, I will immediately go into federal court and press aggressively as I can to stop federal officials from doing that. And let me just add this, and I think you've probably heard this talked about a lot less. I will not hesitate to enforce state criminal law against federal actors where they violate our criminal laws, whether that's our assault laws, whether that is kidnapping, whether that is homicide, right? Those, and I can tell you, there will be a fight when that happens. They will seek to remove it to federal court, and they will argue that their officers are immune under the U.S. Constitution's supremacy clause. But that's a case-by-case determination. If they are acting outside of the scope of their lawful authority, and I'm confident we've seen that happen many times, then they don't have immunity. And I will be prepared to fight that fight. So those are just a few thoughts.
But just an added remark is that these terrorists were between the ages of 16 and 20. That's what what I read, whether it's true or not. Well, these are children. They're not, they're not major adults. It's 16 to the 18-year-olds anyways.
You maybe read a little bit more than I have. I hadn't heard that
Yeah, I
detail
thought,
yet.
well, that's a little strange, so I just don't believe the whole thing. I mean, I believe it's happening, but it's, what's behind it? What's the backstory?
Yeah, I don't know that, but I'm going to stay tuned for
Should we
sure.
make one?
Okay, one more question.
Along with that is the whole idea that if you can get elected, you can do that. This could happen before you're elected. You know that rumor that's going around that he's gonna have it set up for troops to go into every state by March of 26. I mean, and this could
Right.
be a way to do it. I mean, I don't know. I just
Yep.
can't trust anything they're doing.
So a couple thoughts on that. Let me start by what I've done in this space and then what I'll do. What I've done in late 2019, early 2020, the governor asked me if I would lead her effort to protect the vote in 2020 in terms of the governor's role. Some of you will know this. The governor plays a really important role in a presidential election. She signs what are called certificates of ascertainment, and she delivers them to three people: the White House, the National Archivist, and the President of the Senate. And it's a really important task, and there's a tremendous amount of mischief from beginning to end that can happen along the ways. And so I did a few things. One, first of all, I built an organization that actually is still running today of other Democratic governors, and I was working with their legal counsels in frontline states. We had Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Minnesota, North Carolina, a few other states as well. And for a year, we met at least once a week to kind of share information, create a common strategy, coordinate in terms of what we were seeing on the ground. And we had an army of lawyers that were ready to help us in the event anything happened. We drafted complaints so that we were ready for anything we could imagine happening. We were ready immediately to go into court. I ran a series of tabletop exercise with top state and other officials 2 or 3 different times, where for like 2 hours, we just tried to battle test all these scenarios. What would we do if X happened? And working with like 30 people in the room, we just role played. What are we going to do? And then finally, you know, I still remember walking with those certificates of ascertainment, having a Michigan State police officer follow my car to the FedEx station and to drop those off. And let me just end by just saying what I'll do. I'm deeply concerned, as you said, that of course we're going to see much more than we saw last time. And I'm especially concerned about what you mentioned, which is the use of the military. I'm concerned about what it means for folks that live in these cities that just simply have the military showing up regardless of an election. But I'm especially concerned by what could happen in that space, which is why we have to be aggressive in fighting back against every one of these things. We can't let something slide, right? Because of course, this is a game of chess he's playing, and he's thinking 3 or 4 steps. Now he's thinking about having the military near polling places, right? Because in Democratic places, of course, right? To try to chill the vote. This is what folks that are ambitious authoritarians do. And so we have to fight back at every single instance. And that's certainly one of them. All right. Thank you all so much. It's so good to be here tonight.
Thank you, Mark. All right, next up, who here knows what YIMBY is? Raise your hand if you know what YIMBY is. YIMBY stands for, it's an acronym for Yes in My Backyard. So this group, YIMBY, fights for affordable housing in our communities, and here to talk about it is Alex. Welcome, Alex.
All right. Hi, everyone. Can you hear me okay? Okay. Thanks for having me. As he said, I'm Alex Morford. I'm a volunteer lead with YIMBY Oakland County. We advocate for building more housing in the local area, typically through zoning reform, which is a little bit of what I'll be talking about today. My personal background is mechanical engineering. That's what I have degrees in. I don't have any sort of public planning or any background like that, right? So this is just kind of a hobby for me. How I got into this is I'm really into, being able to walk places. I live right on the Royal Oak Clawson border. I walked here today and, I started learning more about, what makes places nice to walk. And that kind of led into, we need housing because we need a certain amount of density for people and all of that. And then here I am. I've been a member of YIMBY for about a year. YIMBY is a nonpartisan organization, so we are thankful that you all invited us today. But we work with people across the political spectrum. And I'll let Sean, my co-lead, introduce himself a little bit too.
Hi, my name is Sean. I live in Royal Oak. I've been also with YIMBY for about a year. My background is public administration. So again, I'm not really planning. But the reason why I got into YIMBY a little bit similar, I was lucky enough to be able to afford a house in Royal Oak a few years ago. A, I would not be able to afford that house now with everything. And then B, if I ever want to have a family, maybe get a bigger house, I'm extremely worried about my ability to stay in Royal Oak and be able to afford something. So I'm mostly in this just because, I think I was extremely lucky to be able to afford a house. I'm worried about my ability to get another house, and I want other people to have the opportunity to be able to get a house. Where unfortunately, due to housing costs, it's out of reach for many people, especially young people. So that's why I'm involved.
All right. So a little bit about YIMBY. So our vision is an integrated society where everyone has access to a safe, affordable home near jobs, services, and opportunity. So that's YIMBY Action, which is our parent organization. We're YIMBY Oakland County, and we're led by volunteers like me and Sean. So the things YIMBY as a whole believes, one is legalized housing. And so that's allowing more housing in every neighborhood, especially historically affluent and exclusionary neighborhoods, and removing barriers to both subsidized, affordable, and market rate housing. We want to make permitting easier so that it's fast and fair, and there's not all those special approvals things go through. We want to fund affordable housing. So when we talk about subsidized affordable, often you can't really build that without some federal, state, and local funding. We want to fix broken incentives. So making sure that taxes and all that so that cities aren't afraid to say yes to housing because they think it'll hurt their local funding. And we want to increase housing stability, make sure that people are able to stay where they're living. So when I talk about housing, there's kind of three types of housing we usually talk about. One is subsidized affordable housing. This is often affordable with a capital A. And so there's families that make about 60% of the area median income or AMI or less. And typically they're going to need funding from the state or federal government to afford housing just because it's such a big cost. And we want them to spend less than 30% of their monthly income on housing. So we build units like Royal Oak Manor, like Clawson Manor, like the Renshaw Senior Apartments, and we allow folks to live there so that everyone has a safe place to live. And then there's something we talk about called attainable housing. You may hear this called workforce housing. So there's people who make around the median income. So we're talking about 80% to 120% of the median income typically. And they should also be able to spend less than 30% of their monthly income on housing. So when you think about like California and New York especially, they're having a huge housing crisis for people who make around the median income, right? So you make the average of everyone around you, and you still can't afford to spend less than 30% of your housing. And unfortunately, that's happening to us too. But we want to get ahead of it before we get to crisis levels, like especially that are hitting some of the bigger cities. And then there's what we call market rate housing. So market rate housing is just priced on what you're able to pay, right? So there's surgeons at Beaumont, and they can pay 30% of whatever they make, right? So their market could be very high, but at some point, there's a cap, right? So around here, we don't typically see things more than a few $1,000s a month. But like in New York City or California, the market for the very, very high-end stuff could be pretty high, right? One thing we often see is people call new market rate housing luxury. So they'll talk about the luxury apartments. But one thing, I actually have an article here from the Daily Tribune, September 22nd, 1955. And it says, Arlington Heights Apartments, 13 Mile and Crooks, brand new, luxurious, exciting 1, 2, and 3 bedroom apartments from $96.90. So that was 70 years ago. These apartments are fine. There's nothing wrong with them, but I don't think anyone's going over to those apartments that are 70 years old today and saying, wow, look at that luxury, right? So, luxury just means new. We go back to COVID, we think about what happened to used car prices when we weren't building new cars, right? You stress the market and the used car prices go up because the people who can afford it, right? The surgeons at Beaumont, they want a new car, no new car being built, I'll buy a used one. They can afford it, price goes up. Same thing happens with housing, right? So those apartments have gotten attainable. I actually did a calculation. You could, if you make 80% of the area median income, you could afford those apartments I was talking about that used to market themselves as luxurious, right? So that's kind of how we want it to work. You build new housing. Over time, your attainable housing comes from, it being a little bit older. The same way we think about with cars, right? A 3-year used car, there's nothing wrong with that. And it's a little bit less expensive. So you can do something similar with housing. But the risk we're running into is if we don't approve the market rate housing, like what we're doing right now, housing won't become attainable in the future because we're supply constrained, right? So when we think about California, they had NIMBYs, people saying no in my backyard that said, you can't build housing by me. You can't build housing by me for 40 years. And so now, like I was saying, you make $120,000 in San Francisco and you can't afford rent because they didn't build anything. So a lot of what we're focused on is making sure that we're building the housing to keep the supply going. So when we're talking about building housing, you think of housing and you don't always think of how it got there, but new housing goes through an approval process. So the developments must meet zoning and other municipal regulations or receive special approvals. So these are things like parking minimums. So some cities, every apartment needs 2 parking spots, no matter how many cars you have. Your building can only be 2 stories here, 3 stories here, 4 stories there, even if the building next to you is 5 stories tall. You might have a maximum density of units per acre. So I own 1 acre, maybe, hypothetically, and you can build 2 units, right? Even though you could easily put 10 small units there. We have minimum square footage. So in college, I lived in a dorm. It was probably 12 by 12. I mean, would I want to live there forever? No, but I liked it at the time, right? So right now we regulate out of building some of these small units, even though, when you first graduate college, when you're first getting started, maybe 350 square feet is all you need, right? We don't allow you to build that. And then we have things like restrictive land uses. So there's areas where you can't build housing, or you can't build housing on the first floor. And so there's all sorts of things, and all these together mean that you can't really build economically feasible multifamily housing around here without special approvals, which means the Zoning Board of Appeals, the Planning Commission, all that. When you don't need special approval, we say it's administratively approved, which means you file your permit and the city planner says, yep, go ahead, build that. And really the only things that frequently happens for around here is single family homes, right? So in Royal Oak, you can make a 3,500 square foot home, send it into the city, and they say, great, have your 3,500 square foot home with your 800 square foot garage. But if you wanted to build a duplex, 1,000 square feet next to 1,000 square feet, sorry, you can't have that. So really what we want to do is make it easier to build more types of housing, right? And one of the problems with special approvals is even if you get them, it takes time, it's expensive, and it's not predictable, right? So thinking back to affordable housing, some affordable housing is never proposed because of the risk of not receiving special approvals, right? So I own an acre. I have this great, hypothetically again, I don't own an acre. I own an acre. I want to put a 4-story apartment building on it. But I know that I would have to spend 2 years getting approvals. And if someone on the Zoning Board of Appeals is in a bad mood that day, I'm not going to get my parking variance. I'm going to give up. I'll just build, an office complex. Great. That'll help the housing crisis. Some affordable housing fails to get special approvals. So I don't know if some of you are aware, at 3rd Street and Knowles in Royal Oak, they're trying to build a new affordable complex. So this is going to be about 60 units with about 60 parking spaces. Well, unfortunately, Royal Oak requires 1.5 parking spots per unit. So this had to go to the Zoning Board of Appeals, which is 7 people who get to decide if housing gets to be built. It did pass, but there were no votes, right? So when you're thinking about that, essentially, I think if 2 people would have switched their votes, it would have killed the project. No affordable housing for them. Those are the kinds of things, right? We need to fix it ahead of time so that there's not 2 people who could change their votes and kill some affordable housing. That's just silly. And then that project was approved, right? But it takes longer to complete and it costs more because of those special approvals, right? So every special approval you have to get on the board. Maybe there's not an availability next month. You got to wait 2 months. Then once you get your planning or zoning, then you got to go to the other one. And it just takes time and money, right? And when you think about it, maybe some of those developers are like, I'm not going to build this. It's too much work. So I've been deep into the Daily Tribune archives and the city archives. And I've been trying to see what kind of approvals were needed for the affordable housing we have. Royal Oak Manor, I couldn't get back that far, but today it only would have about 1/3 of the required parking, and it would be a special land use because first floor in the central business district. Barton Towers in downtown Royal Oak required rezoning, required parking variance, required site plan approval, and the city had to vacate the street so it could get to the amount of parking it had. Clawson Manor, rezoning. It needed a material and window variance. It had the wrong kind of brick wall. And it needed a site plan approval. Renshaw Senior Apartments needed rezoning. The Village of Royal Oak, over at 13 and Crooks, was a special redevelopment process because it was a former city site. And then 3rd Street and Knowles, as I talked about, it was a parking variance, but also a special land use and a site plan approval. So these projects make it through because there's passionate people, and we should be very thankful for those passionate people, but we're putting our own barriers in place, right? None of these were federal funding. None of these were state funding. All of these were our own barriers at the city level that made these projects harder to build, right? And so really we need to get out of our own way and make it easier so that if, oh,
I was gonna make a point.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry. Just wanted to make the point, especially on, rezoning, and getting special approvals. We run into this at Royal Oak all the time. There'll be some people that say, I moved into my single family neighborhood, 30, 40 years ago, I don't want it to change. But the thing is, back when they moved into that neighborhood, it was okay to build a duplex. It was okay to build some of these, different types of housing. And then it was changed to ban, make it illegal to build that. So that's just kind of what we're also trying to do is, a lot of this is new, but a lot of this is also just allowing the type of housing to be built that used to be able to be built in a lot of these cities that we banned. So I just want to point out, a lot of this isn't necessarily new. It's just kind of going back to what it used to be.
yeah, that's a great point. And getting to the actions you can take, right? So the first one is support zoning reform. Zoning reform can sound scary. There might be a sign in your neighbor's yard that says save single family homes. I live in a single family home. I plan to keep living in my single family home. No one's coming for it, right? What they're trying to say, is you can't have one. You can absolutely have your single family home if zoning reform comes. What it means is that if your area is rezoned to maybe allow duplexes, when your neighbor tears down their bungalow, maybe instead of building a 3,500 square foot building, they build 2,000 square foot, 2,000 total square feet of duplex. To me, that seems reasonable. As we all know, household sizes are getting smaller. There's usually only about 2 people living somewhere, right? We used to have larger families. We don't anymore. 4 people, living 2 and 2 in a duplex, to me, very reasonable in our areas. So I think one important thing is if you have neighbors you're close to that you think are scared by rezoning, maybe just mention to them, this is all incremental and we're just trying to build more housing because it's important. You can also provide public comment, in-person emails and surveys supporting city-level zoning reform. So in Royal Oak, we're going to be rewriting the zoning ordinances soon. There'll be lots of meetings where you can voice your support for, allowing a little more housing. And you can encourage your state representative and state senator to enact statewide zoning reform. So there's about 60 municipalities in Oakland County. They all have zoning board of appeals meetings. They all have planning commission meetings. They all have city council and commission meetings. It's just going to be impossible to do this city by city, right? And we all share some housing, right? Like when I was looking for a house, I looked in Clawson, Royal Oak, and Troy. People are similar, right? We're not all going to live in just one city. And so we really need to fix it everywhere. But there's so many meetings to get through on a city by city level. Some states like California, all across the country have done a good job of encouraging everyone to limit parking or encouraging everyone to allow accessory dwelling units, which are like a little backyard apartment, right? We need to fix this on the state level too. And then what's most important is getting it fixed overall. But until we do, we need to support specific projects that will add more housing or prevent the removal of housing. So city commission, council, planning commission, zoning boards of appeals have meetings. You can check their agendas and go give a comment on a specific project. For example, in Royal Oak on November 11th, there's a project to turn a small gas station into some housing. To me, great idea. I'm going to be there. If anyone wants to come hang out, we can give some public comment. And in Clawson, there's the Renshaw Senior Apartments. So the background on these is Clawson started acquiring land around spring of 1980 for what are now the Renshaw Senior Apartments. They cost about $500 a month, and they're exclusively for seniors who are already living in Clawson. As I found in the Royal Oak archive or the Royal Oak Daily Tribune archives, the early proponents wanted these so that seniors would continue to move out of their homes, open those for young families to keep the students for the schools. But right now there's some concern that the city staff want to sell this without protecting affordability for redevelopment, right? So we need to make sure that we're taking actions to keep these affordable long-term. And So we have a website, yimbyoaklandcounty.org. You can email us, hello@yimbyoaklandcounty. I have business cards and I'll be sitting in the back after if anyone wants to come get one from me. And we're always looking for more volunteers and volunteer leads. Are there any questions? Yeah.
Have we ever had any time in our history when we've had affordable housing without an all of government effort to make sure it was built?
That's a great question. Like you're saying, like for everyone can afford. So I think what you get to is the lowest income people should only be spending 30%, and that includes things like gas, water, and electric, right? So when you start to get really low income, it just becomes hard, right? You know, if you're exclusively on something like a low disability payment, you just need more help. But as we build more housing, we essentially reduce the income where you need the government funding, right? So if we keep building market rate, the older apartments keep getting cheaper. So, you know, the goal would be that the area median income you need, the amount of income you need to afford market rate housing can keep going down. But it, you know, at the very lowest levels, I think we just need to support it because, you know, there's just not enough income at the lowest levels. But one important thing is as we can make more people afford housing, we can really invest in the lowest income and our dollars go farther, right? Like in California, where they have to spend their federal money so that, you know, average people can afford housing, that's a problem, right? Because the money just doesn't go as far for the lower income people.
Yeah, just to add on to that, you know, especially for lower income or even homeless, shelter funding, example from California, even if you put a whole bunch of money, they did billions of dollars towards building homeless shelters. If you don't have the zoning reforms and approval reforms that go with it, they approved something like $10 billion to spend on homeless shelters. And after it was like 5-10 years, none of it got built because when they would go and get approval, the local city council, local neighborhood would say, no, we're okay. We voted for this, but we just don't want it in our neighborhood. And the problem with that argument is every single neighborhood says, I'm okay with this, but I just don't want it in my neighborhood. And so you can spend, approve $10 billion, but if you have nowhere to actually build, the homeless shelter, low income housing, it doesn't matter how much money you spend. So that's why zoning reform is also important, because if you really care about building affordable housing, restricted housing like that, you still need to get it approved. And unfortunately, a lot of times it's very difficult to do.
One more question. Do you deal with anything like short-term rentals that take single-family homes off the market in Royal Oak? Because we've had it in our neighborhood. It's just a home right next to us off the market. It's a beautiful home for a small family, and it was just sitting there, and now it's like for rent for double the rate of the current rate for a home like that in Royal Oak. And we don't understand what's going on.
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of things with short-term rentals. One of them is that I think we should build enough housing that it doesn't necessarily matter, right? So on one side, if you build enough housing, that there's plenty, then a few units going to short-term rentals isn't necessarily going to matter. I do think that there should be regulations on short-term rentals. I don't exactly know what those are, and that is, an area of concern. I also think we should make it easier to build hotels too, though. Because one thing short-term rentals show us is that there's a need for hotels, but those are another thing that, we often prevent in zoning. We make it difficult to build everything. So I think that if we make it easier to build something like hotels as well, we can kind of, again, reduce the demand for short-term rentals, because if you have tons of hotels at $100 a night, it doesn't make sense to rent your house out, right? So I think there's lots of solutions to short-term rentals. Some of it is, I don't know, Sean, if you have anything else to add there.
We're not necessarily opposed to regulation with that, but a lot of the issue, people run into is you only have a limited housing supply, especially the west side of the state, a lot of the vacation towns, they have a big issue with, short-term rentals like that. And, again, it's, if you only have a certain amount of housing, some of those are turned into short-term rentals, that's going to be a much bigger deal versus if you allow all different types of housing to be built, that kind of lessens the impact. And of course, still have regulation, hours of operation, things like that. But that is important. And then one thing I just wanted to mention, we are a nonpartisan organization. I do just want to point out, of a Democratic club, especially for elections, states like Texas, Florida, a lot of red states, it's very easy to build housing. Those states are growing and they're getting electoral votes. States like California, New York, Michigan, we are losing electoral votes. A lot of that has to do with housing and the availability of that. Again, we don't necessarily take a side on that, but just saying a lot of these states, that may not be as progressive, are building housing, and they make it a lot easier to move there than a lot of states or even just blue areas in purple states. So again, that's just something to keep in mind, especially for future elections. Your preferred candidate you might not be getting the same electoral votes they used to be getting, just based on housing costs. So just wanted to point that out. Sure. Yeah.
Section 8 housing, a lot of that has moved into hotels and motels. So if you're trying to rent a hotel, a lot of people are moving into Airbnbs and Verbos because they actually, there's fewer hotels rooms to rent because Section 8 housing is taking over a lot of the hotels and motels in our area. My husband's a first responder up in Rochester Hills, and many of the hotels and motels in Rochester Hills are their Section 8 housing. So it's like a cyclical, we just have this issue with all across the board. So when people are like, oh my gosh, all these short-term rentals are an issue, it's like, well, they go try to find a hotel or motel. A lot of those are being taken up with Section 8 housing.
Yeah.
So
there's a lot of knock-on problems. Yeah.
It's an issue. Just something to think about too.
So we'll be staying afterwards if anybody has some questions. And again, we've got a website, social media. Feel free to reach out to us. Thank you.
Thank you so much to Alex and Sean. I would suggest you guys get on their email list. It's a very good way of getting on, finding out what's going on. There's action items, and they tell you what's going on in our neighborhoods about housing. All right, next up, Debo, what's our treasurer's report?
$100 and a Royal Oak Rising Fund at $111. I have shirts for sale, and if you want to take dues, actually probably wait till the next year. I'll start getting January. In December, you can start paying 2026 dues, and you can do them online or in meetings.
All right, thank you, Deb. Next up, Royal Oak High School Democrats. They're going to come up. We have Owen Kruger and Cameron Bayless. Give them a round of applause.
Hello. As Carl said, I'm Owen Kruger and this is Cameron. We are from the high school Dems. The school year for us kind of basically just started. We planned our first meeting though. We're going to meet on Thursday, November 6th. And sadly, because of some events at the high school, we're no longer allowed to have guests come to meetings if they're not like a first-rate club or one that's directly endorsed by the school, which we can't be due to events that I think our school board members will likely talk about once they're up here. We'll talk about it then. Okay. So I don't know if you've heard, but some students tried to start a Turning Point USA chapter at the high school, and that incited protests over them being a quote unquote hate group, according to the protesters, and all of the things that come with a club backed by who Charlie Kirk was. And a lot of people were very upset by that and decided to protest the formation of the club. And it was louder, and it was quite the event at the school for a day. Do you have anything to add on that? I mean, yeah.
I mean, I'll say the protest was peaceful. It was supposed to be a walkout. It was organized on social media. It ended up being a sit-in in our auditorium. Our superintendent, if you know him, but he tried to go and speak to the organizers, protesters about public policy and what he legally and what the school board legally can and cannot do regarding this club. From my recollection, some students were expecting a Q&A and got upset. It got a little bit rowdy. I spoke to, he eventually left, because it wasn't gonna be any conversation that was gonna be productive. And the protesters sat in the auditorium for the rest of the day, organizing, and planning next steps. So what's gonna end up happening for now is that I feel like our understanding is that Turning Point is gonna be able to meet in our school. It's public to anyone who wants to go. I know a lot of people that are planning to go to this meeting just to see what it's about and hear them out. So they're gonna have their first meeting. The protesters are still gonna do silent protesting with pins, sign making, all of those things, and still be very, very against Turning Point. And then we're just gonna be meeting on Thursday for our first meeting of the year.
And also the protests were very much unaffiliated with the high school Dems. It was like an independent thing run by students, just to make sure that's clear. And we have to recognize that if Turning Point isn't allowed to exist at the high school, then we wouldn't be either, because we're a political club and they are as well. So that's kind of the big tricky spot that we're in. We don't support Turning Point's values at all, but we have to recognize that if we're going to be at the high school, we have to allow for someone like them to be at the high school. And I think that is most of what we have. Questions? Yeah. Well, it's not necessarily a high school Dems thing, but me and Cameron, before we came here, we were getting interviewed by a journalist who was working with the Michigan ACLU, oopsies, and Michigan Libraries Association about the importance of not banning books.
Yeah, one more question,
Any more questions?
Anybody?
I'll just make a comment.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys are awesome. Don't be shy about being against things that you don't agree with, right? So I know you gotta take a stance, that's open and fair, but don't be shy about showing what you really believe with.
All right, thank you all for coming. All right, we do have to be out here at noon, so we're gonna get everybody here to talk. So we're gonna go first with elected official reports. So these are people who are already elected to office. Would anybody like to start off? Because we could also wait until candidate time. Charlie? I was trying to abbreviate time. Do we have anything to update? Yeah, come on up.
Microphone, that's right. I'm gonna have Matt join me, like I said, because I am getting over a little sinus infection. So last Saturday, 2 Saturdays ago, we went and we did a sign making. It was pretty good. We probably had around 30 people show up. This is before the protest at No Kings. So that was great. And then we also set up a table at the No Kings, and a lot of people showed up and wanted to talk to us. And it was just overall like a very fantastic, positive experience. So, you know, I think we want to do more of that in the future. We talked about with some people doing some indivisible. So we want to get more involved regarding that. As for Royal Oak Rising, Peyton's pushing pause. She did an absolutely awesome job. She's working full time and going to law school. And that is, I don't know if anyone's done that before. I did grad school and work full time. It's exhausting. It's the tiredest I've ever been in my life. But so she's pushing pause. So Matt and I are going to be probably asking for some help and seeing how we can just restart the organization and continue to do more fun events and continue to bring, you know, having a focus on youth and doing that kind of stuff, which is a different set of activities than we do here. Also awesome, but different age focus. I don't know, Matt, if you got anything you want to add?
No, I mean, and just the point that I made to people that were coming, you know, at the No Kings event was like, hey, this is great. We need to do this. You know, it's all great, but if everybody like that were here would have actually voted, we wouldn't be in the mess we're in. So we need to make sure that we actually come out and vote and actually work and support the organizations to support candidates that you actually agree with. So that was my little spiel.
Charlie.
Yeah, I just want to make a comment. I went to the sign making. You guys did a great job. They had signs, yardsticks, music, icebreakers, they did it all. So I think they did a great job, the town.
Yeah. Matt and Eric. Okay, now we're up to candidate for office, and we'll start at state level. Do I have candidate for office or representatives for candidates for office at state level? I'm sorry, was it elected officials? No, wait, elected officials, right? Elected officials. All right, we have elected officials. I'm sorry. You guys gonna do it together?
Yeah.
All right.
Well, and we'll try and be quick. We'll be quicker if we do it together.
Yeah, why don't you come up?
Hi, guys. Natalie Price, state representative for most of Royal Oak. And then Sharon MacDonell. Introduce yourself.
Everybody, good to see you today. I'm so happy that you're here in Clawson. I'll give some remarks, but I'm sure Rep. Price will talk about what's going on in Lansing a little bit more. And you know, it's the same old crap, so.
Well, it's not easy right now, but let's talk a little bit about the work that we're doing with the Michigan House Dems. We passed that budget, right? We got a budget through the finish line. We avoided a government shutdown, proud of that. But we missed some important things in that budget. One of the things that I am specifically paying attention to and advocating for is constitutional revenue sharing for our cities. Our cities are already underfunded. The way that we negotiated for a roads deal in the budget puts their constitutional revenue sharing at risk. They are not going to get as much funding as they otherwise would. A lot of their funding is being specifically directed to local roads, which we need, and to public safety, which we need. But whenever I was on city council, right, and I've talked to many of you who serve or are hoping to serve on city council, when the state restricts what you can spend your money on, it causes a lot of issues. So in a supplemental, I am focusing on advocating for a supplemental within this year that will help make up the difference for that constitutional revenue sharing. Another thing that was cut, which seems like an oversight, it's so silly, but the autism navigator, right? It's so cheap, it serves so many people so effectively, and the fact that it wasn't in it is embarrassing for the Republicans, because they're the ones that just blew past the usual budget process. They didn't do public targets for each of our subcommittees. They didn't run the bills through the subcommittees, allowing questions and testimony and the process that we always use to get the budget right. So I'd also just want to do my, call to action. If you have also been digging through the budget and seeing things that we've missed, please reach out, because we will be doing a supplemental before the end of the year. We need to make sure that these essential services are in it. And then the other thing we're doing a lot in Lansing is fighting for relief for SNAP funding. I'm sure that you guys have heard that the federal government, the federal administration has said that they will be pausing SNAP benefits. And of course, we should all be supporting our local food banks, yes. But right now, local food banks may pay for one meal as opposed to the federal SNAP funding, which pays for 9 meals for every family. There's no system in which the food banks can make up the difference. The governor did just do a press release saying that she's going to be allocating DHHS funding $4.5 million to help food banks. That's great. It's better than nothing, but it can't make up SNAP and food assistance federally. There's been a federal judges who have told them that they need to release these funds. And I think we're all waiting to see what will happen with that. Unfortunately, we've seen Trump ignore federal rulings before, constitutional crisis. And that's when she says, yeah, it's as usual, challenging, but we're going to keep raising the alarm, speaking up, and pointing out to all of us, our elected officials in Congress need to keep representing us, keep fighting for the things that we all believe in, like constitutional division.
This morning, Trump did say that he was going to honor that.
Oh, I missed that.
We'll see, but they don't know if it's going to take a long time. If we're going to be missing some days, what's going to happen. But there's been a lot of energy in Lansing over that for a lot of us. And I just wanted to, one thing, because of all of this, we were really spending time looking at our local food banks. And I think in my district, I only have one building that's a standalone food bank and clothing bank. They do a lot of work with refugees. It's called United Community Family Services. And if you're on my newsletter list or you want to look at my social media, I'm going to be holding an event there on December 6th in the afternoon. That's the plan right now, to have both a clothing drive, coat drive, mitten drive, and food drive for that facility to help them get in, no matter what happens on the national level. So please look out for that. And I didn't want to talk too much about good old Lansing, because what fun we have there. But I did want to thank, I know Tom, I think Tom Reagan talked to me in July about trying to put this together, having a meeting here in Clawson. I'm so excited that he did, because Clawson has been a very exciting place this year. And a lot of it is from some of the ladies and gentlemen in the back row, Heather Rinkevich of Clawson Voices and Jamie Gills Takanuchi. Sue Moffitt is running for mayor, Alex Pishak, and I think Meredith Pelton's here maybe, but I have not met her in person. Nope. Okay, it's Scott Manning. Sorry. I look forward to shaking your hand in a minute. I just want to tell you that I lived in Clawson from 95 to 2005, and then I've been in Troy for 20 years now. But I've been waiting for so long for the blue people of Clawson to raise their heads and demand change. And it's so exciting. And this is a blue city that somehow has always been represented by Republicans. And it's really time for at least them to have some say in what's happening in Troy. So I'm sorry, in Clawson. So I'm just really excited. Thank you, Heather, for your leadership, Jamie, and Sue Moffitt for some of your suffering in city council meetings. And it's just been a delight to watch you guys get to work and run for office. And best of luck on Tuesday. Thank you.
Penny Luebs, Oakland County Commissioner. Welcome to Clawson. I've lived in Clawson 45 years, and we in Clawson can get anywhere we need to in Clawson with less than 5 minutes. So we're on Clawson time here. So, and I am grateful that we have a meeting in Clawson in this building. This building for us who live in Clawson have been home to Boy Scouts, home to Acting Out Kids Theater Club, home to many, many different groups, and the church has always opened up their doors to any nonprofit group. I also see Royal Oak Mayor and City Council members here, and our school board, Royal Oak School Board members here. I don't know if you're interested in saying anything to people who live in Clawson, but Clawson and Royal Oak together as the Royal Oak Area Democratic Club are a force. And I want to tell you, everyone who lives in Clawson, that the Royal Oak Dem Club is so supportive and comfortable and caring and empathetic. On the county level, what we're seeing is that nonprofits are struggling because our ARPA money has ended. We used our ARPA money to support many social service programs. Now they've used that money up. They're looking for other places to continue their same programs, and that's not always going to happen. In public mental health in Oakland County, we have OCHN, or Oakland Community Health Network, who is looking to see what the state is going to do about PIHPs, or public CMHs. So our OCHN group is starting to take back some services. So what you might hear is that Common Ground, who provides the emergency psychiatric assessments for our people with Medicaid, that OCHN is now hiring emergency psychiatric screeners to provide the same service as Common Ground. So nonprofits are all struggling to survive. So we'll see how that plays out. The good news is later this month, you'll hear about a community placemaking group that I'm going to spearhead. So the county is collaborating with MEDC for art proposals for cities. So we're going to open up grants to 20 communities. So MEDC will provide 50,000, the county will provide 10,000, and the city would be responsible for fundraising, virtual, social media, the rest of the money for their art project. So I know in Clawson, there's been some conversation about Heart. The Heart was the originator. The idea originated from our librarian's husband, who's an artist, who would donate his time to do the art. It's expensive to build an 8-foot by 6-foot art. But this is one way that might happen, and that Royal Oak may be able to utilize that program for an additional art piece in Royal Oak. All right, thank you. Who's next? Thank you.
Thank you, Penny. All right, so that's state and county. We got city elected officials want to speak right now? We have Sharlan Douglas, Amanda, we got the mayor and Brandon. Come on, guys, this is Royal Oak City Council people and the mayor.
So thanks so much for our YIMBY presentation today. You said that better than I ever could have, and everything they said is correct and needed in our community. And I know that the Planning Commission is just about ready to review requests for proposals for consultants to redo our zoning ordinance. The elements that you've described, the need for administrative approvals for multifamily, removing of parking requirements, I think are two principles that I'll be fighting for. This will be an extensive process, and as with the master plan, and thanks to all of you who participated in the master plan process, we'll be coming back to you again for your feedback on zoning. And especially congrats to YIMBY for being such an effective group of puppets for a West Coast communist cabal, as we so often hear. And just briefly, so I got involved with this club 13 years ago, back when we held our meetings in phone booths, back when there were phone booths. And the growth of this club has just been extraordinary. I mean, look how many people we have here. Every one of you is an activist. And the work that you are doing, and you'll get gratitude, I suspect, from others here, the work you're doing on doors has helped us make Royal Oak reflect the progressive values of the people who live here and the people in our club. This is the end of my last term on the city commission. This is my last time to speak to you as a commissioner. And I want to express my personal gratitude for all of the work that you have done on my behalf over the last 12 years. And the work you will do to make Royal Oak a progressive city for the foreseeable future. So thank you.
Thank you.
I also want to thank Shar. Her voice at the table is going to be a big loss for us, even though we have great candidates coming up. We do the history and all the thoughtfulness. We're going to miss you, Shar. I just want to point out a couple of great environmental things that are happening. Our last Monday meeting, we were just approving a lot of great things that are happening. So we have a new program called Reno, and I can't really remember what it means, but what it means for you is that if you're going to do anything to your home regarding sustainability, affordable housing, or aging in place, you still need to do an inspection and a permitting process, but the fees are waived. So it's really a great opportunity to do things to your home that help advance the priorities of our city. We also approved solar on the library, and the really cool thing about that is hopefully will be a display in the lobby, and so you can see the energy and the savings. It'll be a really great educational piece for the city, besides just seeing it on the roof. We also improved our standards for fog, the fats, oils, in our through the restaurant grease. I was like, yes. Halloween was last night, and I'm still like trying to bounce back from that. And then the last thing is our composting program is expanding. So you may see that the bins are out 24/7 now at the farmers market. That's a soft launch. There's gonna be more education moving out, but it's also going to expand to the senior center, the Salter Center, and the where you pick up composting, 13 in Coolidge. That will be in the new year. That'll be February. There'll be education. There'll be a huge rollout there. And then finally, I just want to say that the election is in 3 days, and thank you all for your help in helping our candidates get across that finish line. To do this job, you have to be thoughtful, intentional, and experienced. So it's really easy to point out the problems in the city. It's a little bit harder to find solutions for them, and you definitely need experience to implement them. And so if you watch the forum for the Royal Oak candidates, you can really see that they're really skilled at pointing out the problems, but they don't have any solutions, and none of them have experience in implementing any policy in the city. They will spend their time, because they don't have that experience, fighting with us. So every Monday night we'll be fighting with us instead of fighting for you as residents. And so let's help this team that has proven solutions, that has experience, get them across the finish line so that they can be fighting for you and doing things for the city instead of just fighting with the rest of us.
I really don't want to follow this stuff up. I mean, thank you for making the sale. So I actually want to kick off recognizing Owen and Cameron again. I mean, what a tough situation to be in, and what maturity to handle that with. To recognize another diversion coming in. I mean, that's a great job. You know, Amanda mentioned the solar at the library. I want to highlight that for another moment. I got involved in the club 8-9 years ago. Trump had just been elected. I was in a dark place. I didn't know what to do. So I came to find my people. I thought, you know, I need to come here. And through that, I was actually appointed to the library board, and I started 2017. And 2017, we talked about doing solar at the library. Melanie Macy pointed this out. And that's like a pie in the sky dream at the time. We never thought we could do it. We knew we needed a new roof. We thought we could do it. And we laid the groundwork for those plans. That's 2017, and here we are in 2025. It's finally happening. Governance takes a lot of time. It takes dedication, and it takes seeing projects through, because it doesn't just happen like that. You have to have a plan. You have to implement that plan. And that's what we've been doing. You know, my 5 years on city commission, Char's 12 years on city commission. She's seen a lot of plans through. And Mike's decades. I don't know how long you've been doing this for a long time. You're a younger man when you started.
That's how time works, Brandon.
Mike could have been in Royal Oak Rising at the time. That's all I'm saying.
He just wants to say that he's the youngest on the.
Yeah.
Brings a fresh new voice.
Yeah. At 40, the youngest one. So I just want to say, you know, it takes a lot of dedication, hard work, and we're seeing these plans through. So like Amanda said, the other team's really nice at telling you what's wrong. They manufacture things that are wrong in their heads with the city, but most of it's not, has no basis in reality. And we're going to continue to do this good work. So thank you all. I'm going to make one last plea for help here. We have, 3 days to get this across the finish line. We need help. We need help in any way that you can. If you can help us just hang lit on doors, it's just walking. You don't even have to talk to people at this point. We just need you to put a door hanger on a door. That would be a tremendous help. We have about 7,000 spots that we need to hit between now and Tuesday. And Woody and Paul at a station over there, at the end of the meeting, come see us. We'd love to sign you up. If you can do 50 doors, 100 doors, it gets us to where we need to be. If you don't want to walk around, fine. That's awesome. We have a phone bank that's calling just progressive Democrats. We're calling our people and asking them simply to get out and vote. That's all we need at this point. We have 3 days left. We just need you to go to the poll. So we've had some great volunteers helping already, and we need some more. So if you can phone bank for us or go out and walk, or if you can't, just send us some good vibes. But we appreciate everything. Thank you so much. And here's Mike.
Thank you, Brandon. Good to be in Clawson. Yeah. Our love and values definitely don't stop at the border. My brother lives here, so I get to spend some time here. Mostly he puts me to work when I get to his house. Brings me in with a hamburger, and then he's like, "Oh, can you fix the washer? Can you do this?" And so it's good to be here, not working on something. It's been really great. Before I get into what could be left, I mean, I think the crew did a really good job explaining what's going on in our city. I just want to say thank you to Commissioner Douglas. She has spent 12 years. She has been a powerful voice and contributor to the progress we've made as a city. I've served with her on the planning commission and I've served with her on the city commission. And I got to tell you, a lot of times she's that voice where it's like, oh, yeah, she said it, had to be said. And I thank you for the bottom of my heart because it means I don't have to say it and I can be the good guy. So I really appreciate that personally. But in all seriousness, Shar has been an outstanding leader. I look up to her tremendously. We're going to miss serving with her, but I know for a fact she's not going to go away and she's going to be helping out in any capacity that she can because it matters. It matters. Maybe just a couple things on, we had YIMBY here today. Thank you for your presence. Thank you when you come out to some of these contentious city commission meetings. You know, there could be 20 very intense people at these meetings coming up to public comment that aren't mathematically representative of our city. And we get 2 or 3 or 4 folks that come out on a Monday night because a lot of us have things going on. And the YIMBY voice has been pretty powerful, not in numbers per se sometimes, but putting some of these terrible misguided ideas to rest and checking people on their thoughts. Sometimes people get, you know, they think in terms of bumper stickers and memes, and to have thoughtful dialogue and discussion and comments made at the podium at city commission meeting, even if you're in the minority, really makes a difference. And what has that led to? We talked a little bit about affordable housing. Royal Oak, I'm getting calls from other communities about how we're actually doing affordable housing in a city, a mature city that's been built out. If you look at the Lincoln project that's going down by Lincoln and Troy, and you look at, or Knowles, if you look at the Lockwood project that's going right next to the courthouse, this is a perfect way to go about affordable housing. A lot of communities talk about, say, hey, let's take and build something way out by the railroad tracks and the cemetery, like where Sheets is going. Let's go put all the people that, you know, don't make as much money. Let's just put them in that area. We in Royal Oak are saying, let's build these really beautiful multifamily housing units where people are paying, you know, top rent and they're getting all the amenities in that building. And we're carving out inside that building a place for hardworking people, retired people, people that may not be making as much money, but are contributing significantly to our economy. They can live in those buildings too, and not be put out in the back corner of the city, but be part of the community that they help build. And I think it's a really remarkable way. Really remarkable way of tackling this crisis. And the YIMBY presentation got it right. You know, it's not just people leaving the state. We got to worry about people leaving this area and leaving our city. So also on the sustainability front, I signed a contract the other day for some cool charging stations for the city, which means that we're moving to EVs a little bit at a time, you know, as these leases and vehicles come up. So not all progress happens overnight. Sometimes it's vehicle by vehicle. Sometimes it's solar panel by solar panel. But having the right crew up here, the people that are willing to make the tough decisions really matters. And so I'll just leave with this. Please vote. Please vote for Brandon Kolo. Please vote for Paul and Woody. And if you see it in your heart, vote for me. We're willing to do the work, at least for another 2 to 4 years. And because of each of your contributions, it happens, right? It's not us up there. It's all of you in this room. It's the entire community coming together to put our values on display and vote for our values. And so it's really been a privilege to serve. I hope we can serve you for another 2 to 4 years and get some new voices up there as well. Thank you. And yep, we're going to be out doing door hangers, making calls. One last push to you know, buy the time till Tuesday. So thank you very much.
Right. Any more? Is there any Clawson city council members that want to speak? Come on up. This is the time. Go ahead, introduce yourself.
I'm Susan Moffitt. I'm actually currently in Clawson City Council. And as Sharon mentioned, we have some craziness going on in our city. I'm also running for mayor. So I've served on council from 17 to 21, and I've been on council since 23. You know, they say all politics is local, and a lot of the things that we see happening at the federal level, we see happening in Clawson. We have members of our elected officials who blatantly ignore the city charter or use the city charter for their own personal agendas. We also have elected officials trying to suppress freedom of speech. one of our great people here, Jamie Chakanauchi, had the mayor of Clawson storm out on her twice while she was trying to use her right to public comment. So, right, yeah, right. So those are some of the things we have going on in Clawson. We do have a lot of work being done for trying to sell some vacant lots and that kind of thing, rezoning, so that we can build some additional housing. That's something that was recently in front of us. And of course, they spoke about the Renshaw Apartments, which is a great place for our seniors to live. We've spent time there. There's a great community there, and the city administration is trying to sell that out from under them. So we're working hard to make sure that those things don't happen. So, as I said, I'm also running for mayor currently to sort of put an end to some of those things, bring civility back to the dais, make sure freedom of speech is protected in our community, and to make sure that our city charter is adhered to, the rules are followed, and petty personal agendas do not rule the day.
All right, school board. School board, you guys want to come up top? Come on up. Royal Oak School Board members, Michelle Wood, Stacy Chorsky, and Lauren Jasinski.
Morning, everybody. I'm Tim Chorsky. I'm the president of the Royal Oak School Board. Are there any Clawson School Board members here? All right, we're inside. This is all you got. You get Royal Oak School Board. Again, I'm Tim Chorsky, the president. We have Michelle Cook, who is our treasurer, and our favorite trustee, Lauren Jasinski. So we've had, as Owen and Cameron mentioned already, quite the week at Royal Oak High School last week. We've done everything we could think of to basically stop that club from happening. We're bound by this thing called the Constitution that does really apply to everybody unless you're in the White House. It applies to everybody. And we do have to give those kids the voice that they need, that they want. If we were to block that, we're actually doing the opposite of our job. Our job is to educate and to form children to become citizens of this nation. And if we tell a certain 5 kids that they can't do that, we're not really doing our jobs either. But does anyone have any questions about that, or not a one? Lisa.
Just wonder, do you see less tension in this dialogue? These are young kids who are forming their chemical minds, and rather than protesting, we could have some, do you see a potential down the road?
Yeah, I think for one, in the school district, we practice what we call restorative practices. And if there's any issue between 2 students, if there's a fight in a school, or there's a disagreement between a teacher and a student, what we try to do is form what's called a restorative circle. And we bring those 2 people, those 2 parties together to try to work out, talk through their differences, and see a path forward where they could both exist in the building that they're forced to be in every day, all day until summertime. So the superintendent and the principal of the high school has proposed that to happen with the leaders or anybody involved in the protest group and the students who want to form Turning Point. We can't force people to do that. Our hope is that they will sit down together and they'll try to talk through their differences and they can coexist, which I think will happen. And in my personal opinion, totally off the record here, that group is going to meet maybe a few times and they're going to be real bored because they can't do what they think they're going to be able to do with that group. But going forward, until that happens, we do have to give them the space. And as Owen and Cameron mentioned, there are school-sponsored groups and then there's student-sponsored groups. School-sponsored groups are things like NHS and Model UN and NHS Math Club. Those are all school-sponsored. If that are curricular, yes. Thank you for the words. And the student-led groups are those that are formed by students with a staff support person or a teacher who wants to be their basically chaperone in that group. Welcome, Santa. So the school-sponsored groups will be permitted to have guest speakers. The student ones going forward will not be permitted to have guest speakers. They will meet as the group of a staff sponsor and the students themselves, which I think will tame some of the, unless Santa wants to come and speak to anybody, he's going to.
Well, I can't hear, I'm sorry. I don't know.
I can't hear either. Your voice is too sore.
All right, Michelle, tell my story.
Okay. So first off, I just want to say I'm having a moment of nostalgia right now because my grandfather, the Reverend Herbert Glenn, was the minister here at this church for many years. And so I absolutely have nostalgia for this building. I remember being in this room doing like a rockathon for some sort of charity all through the night. We had my grandfather's retirement party in this room as well. I just wanted to talk a little bit about some of the improvements that we're working on in the schools. I'm not sure because I've missed a couple of past meetings, but I don't know if you're aware that we are going to be making some renovations and expansion of our early childhood program over at the Ford building / Churchill High School / Trails building. We were able to look at that building space and find a way to include our early childhood program in fall of next school year. And it's going to allow us to expand that program by a couple of classrooms in its first implementation. And I do believe that we are putting in a better dedicated space for Blessings in a Backpack. And I wanted to just give a little shout out to Blessings in a Backpack in this time of concern about food security. Please support programs like that. It does sound relatively hopeful that that Trump said that he would go along with that ruling about the funds. However, he also said, if you can show me how to do it, this may be taking a little while. Apparently, demolishing part of the White House takes no consideration at all, but this, he's got to be walked through it. So it may mean that it takes some time to get these resources to families. And so that's one way that you can help. If you're not aware of Blessings in a Backpack, yes. If you're not aware of Blessings in a Backpack, it is a program where on Fridays before the weekend, students who may be food insecure are given a backpack full of food. Because we know that in the school week, thank you for that budget to finally come through. Our students have, yes, absolutely. Our students, absolutely. Our students have breakfast and lunch provided to them, but over those weekends are when we get concerned that some students may be going without. Yes.
Where do you bring the food?
On
Fridays.
On Fridays. I don't know that, do they take donations of food versus monetary? Yes.
We'll make sure that Carl sends out information about how to donate to Blessings. They collect food and organize throughout the week and then deliver to the schools on Friday. They also need help sorting those donations.
Yes.
So if, as we move into the holiday season, you're looking for some ways to give back to our community, Blessings does just an incredible job taking care of our most vulnerable students. Any family that is eligible for free and reduced lunch is eligible for the Blessings program. So anybody that doesn't hit that threshold, which, like Michelle said, yes, great. Day to day, we're providing breakfast and lunch. We are hopeful that SNAP will continue through. That still is not affecting the fact that people cannot afford groceries on a regular basis, and we want to make sure our kids have healthy things. One thing that I have heard frequently through a lot of these like food service and support programs recently is that dollar donations go a lot further than actually dropping off packages of ramen and things like that, because they know what their needs are. They know, right, how they know what they're lacking. They know what people take frequently and what kids like, and they can stretch those dollar donations a lot further than we can. So just, a quick consideration, if you can donate $10, $20 to Blessings throughout the week, they can do like true magic with that donation. So, but yeah, we'll make sure that Carl sends out that information. Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah. So just a final thought on what I know we're running late, but also like we've been in the news. So we were in Fox News. It was a surprisingly tame article. So just a final thought on what Tim was mentioning is that like both things are true simultaneously, right? That this club is legally allowed to form. They took the steps that they needed to form a student group. They have an adult advisor. They have, you know, they have to follow the student code of conduct. All of those things are still happening. And we, as people who protect our Constitution and First Amendment, have to abide by that. And we believe in that, right? Simultaneously, right, this has also brought great attention to the fact that we are doing like a full audit of all of our school policies that impact the formation of school clubs, the funding of school clubs, the rules that they have to follow. This distinction between school sponsored and student sponsored is going to be really important moving forward. I know the lack of the guest speakers coming in feels like a real bummer, and our high school Dems did an incredible and mature job handling that and knowing that taking this step back temporarily is what's going to be best for the high school as a whole, because we can't make certain clubs abide by rules that other clubs don't, right? And so it's just safer across the board. We're doing that audit. We're updating policies and procedures internally, and we feel really comfortable with that. Another really exciting thing that has recently happened is that we just hired a brand new communications director for the whole district. She was gonna not start until mid-November, and she called us on Friday and she was like, I'll be there Monday morning. So she is already working on improving all of that. We have a letter coming out to the community on Monday morning with an update about what we've done up to this point, kind of where our legal standing are, what the Equal Protection Act does in schools, and you know what we're bound by, just to clarify a lot of those questions. But please know that we are accessible. We're easy to reach. The superintendent is easy to reach. I think he's answered over 120 emails since last Tuesday. Personally, two members of the community. So like we really are trying our best. We understand that people are frustrated with us, but please know that our hearts and our minds are in the right spot. I saw one hand, and then we'll go.
When you're talking about the outside groups, I'm not sure I understand exactly what that is. You mean like not to talk to the group itself, but you mean to have an event or something?
Yeah, so for example, like last semester when the high school Dems first joined, at their meetings, they ran their meetings very similar to our structure, where they had a guest speaker come in and talk to them. So like State Senator Mallory McMorrow has spoken to them, Rep Price has spoken to them, right? They've had people come in, and we've put a pause on that ability for.
Not even to their group themselves, they can't. I thought this one, maybe it's a silly question.
No silly questions.
Like those events that they had at the university where they have a big event or whatever, you know, Charlie Kirk event. You're not talking about the groups could sponsor that and have something in the auditorium for the whole school.
The creation of an outside public event would be
That's a whole different thing.
would be an entirely different thing. We're talking about regular meetings of the club's ability to bring in a.
You can't have outside groups talking to just them.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Yeah. In person or virtually. So no Zoom meetings either. And like we said, we feel like that is going to be safest across the board until we get our hands around some stuff. Okay. Thanks, everybody. We're here. Okay. Yeah.
Just one final thought, just when we say that the clubs are open to, we're talking about the students, right? So any student can go to a club meeting. Yes, exactly. I just wanted to make sure that we clarified that. All right, I think that's.
Thank you, guys. All right, we are running tight on time, but we got to the candidates for office portion. So we'll start at the federal level. So Sarah's going to come up and talk about Mallory McMorrow.
Hello, everyone. My name is Sarah Lee, and no, I am no relation to the cake lady. You're all very inspiring, and I've learned a lot today. I'm here representing the Mallory McMorrow campaign. She is running to take Gary Peters' seat. And I am hosting a fundraiser for her on November 22nd at a home in Royal Oak. And we want everyone to come to hear her speak. Now, of course, she needs money because she's running against Mike Rogers, who has all of the Republican corporate money, working for him. She does not take any PAC money at all. She's really dependent on all of us. And we can do this. We just need people to turn out. So I have a flyer up there with information about it. There is a a link that you can go on. It's Act Blue, and it gives you the information, and you're asked to donate. Our guests, they're asking for a minimum of $100. I said, is that going to be something standing in the way of somebody showing up? They said, absolutely not. Whatever you can contribute, $5, $10, whatever. But please come to hear her speak and invite anyone along with you, your family and your friends, to hear her also. She is, I don't have to sell her to you. You all know what she has done in the state Senate, especially her speech that went viral a couple of years ago about hate will not win. And last year I supported Alyssa Slotkin, and she got in. And so this year I am doing what I can for Mallory, and I'm happy to also door hang or knock on doors or whatever it is, because I can't stand by while all this is happening to our country. I absolutely am floored. I'm 75 years old. My first husband was in political science, and we love to talk about politics. If he were alive today, he'd be absolutely apoplectic. And so I am standing in his stead to get out there and get people out to vote, because that's what it really comes down to. So thank you very much.
Yeah, when's that? All right, so you have information about that fundraiser back there? Okay, so there is information on your way out to go get that. Anywhere federal level, elected or candidates, state level, would you come on up?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Sarah Belovich. I'm representing Karen MacDonell today. So I know you've all heard this is maybe the most important election we've ever had. And I don't need to convince you of that. You're sitting here, you know, but arguably Attorney General may be the most important candidate who we're going to elect, because they are the only public elected official who is standing to sue the federal government, sue Trump, and protect Michigan citizens. And whether it's weaponizing federal power against, political opponents, or attacking reproductive rights, or taking away student loans, we're going to need an attorney general who's going to stand up for us. And Karen MacDonell, the current Oakland County prosecutor, will not only stand up, she knows what is at stake when we talk about those things. She grew up in Portland, Michigan. She came from a father who taught her what it means under the table. He was a construction worker, and when he was laid off, he picked up odd jobs. She went to public schools, and when it was time to go to college, she took out student loans, which she finished paying off 5 years ago. She started her career as a public school teacher. And after that, she became a judge and then the prosecutor. Right now, Washington is destroying the very programs that she's a product of. She knows what's at stake. But also, I want to ask the question right now, because it's important, who's going to represent us in the general? Now, Mark also spoke on earlier, we elect our candidate in a convention. But I think the easiest way to explain why I'm supporting Karen will explain why you should support her as well. So Karen is a proven fighter. And fighter, that's another one of those buzzwords. But let me explain what that means to me. I first met Karen in her capacity as Oakland County prosecutor when she came to DC to present the Oxford case. So some of you might know this case, but it held the Oxford school shooter and the parents accountable. And on this visit to DC, she went on a tour. And I was her tour guide. So we started this tour by passing a map of Michigan. And on this map, there were dozens of red pins. Now, each of these red pins, they represented a shooting. And they were not easily countable. But one of them represented Oxford, and another one represented MSU, where my younger sister lost a very close friend, someone who'd been sitting on our kitchen counter weeks before. So I'm here representing Karen MacDonell today because it's personal. Because it's normal, it's personal, and it shouldn't be not when it's preventable. But that's where we come in. It is a shared obligation. And Karen MacDonell has proven that she will share that obligation to protect the next generation. She first held the shooter accountable. She held the parents accountable. And as a mother of 5, that was not a decision she took lightly. Then she started a commission and she started a nonprofit to research gun violence prevention. We need to elect strong candidates who are going to prevent the next pin in the map, the next attack on our friends, our peers, our family. Karen MacDonell took on a tough fight in the Oxford case. She took on a tough fight for me. She took on a tough fight for those kids, and she promised she was never going to stop fighting for those kids. And I take that to mean she's never going to stop fighting for me, and she's never going to stop fighting for the people of Michigan. We need to elect strong, morally sound leaders. And Karen MacDonell's one of those leaders. She'll uphold the law, she'll protect our freedoms, and she'll keep our communities safe. She has already done that as a prosecutor and a judge, and she's already done that as a mom and a teacher. So I'd really appreciate your support in our campaign. There's two things you can do to support our campaign. One of them is to pledge to vote for Karen at convention. I can leave you a convention card. But also, if you want to hear from Karen herself, we have an Oakland organizing Zoom call on November. Thank you. We have an Oakland organizing Zoom call on November 19th. I can give you a flyer and you can register to hear from Karen, learn more about our campaign, and also learn more about convention. So I'd love you to do one or both. That'd be awesome. And thank you for having me today.
So no, well, all these candidates, I'm gonna put all of it in the next email, so make sure you're getting our emails. Elizabeth Deary's team, you guys want to come up and talk real quick? Elizabeth Deary's team.
Hi, Michelle Pallas here, campaign manager for Elizabeth Deary, my niece, who is running for probate judge, and so many of you have helped us to get the signatures. I am really giving you a campaign update. On November 30th is our deadline. It's our 180-day deadline. So petitions have to be in by then, and we still need signatures. We have the 4,000, but we need, the election board says bring me 8,000 because that's how many wrong, right? Duplicates or whatever. But we have 5,400 right now. And if you haven't signed, over in the back there, my sister Mary in purple will give you the chance to sign the petition. And please sign it before you leave, because I'm not going to see you again before November 30th, because this is the end of the year. So thank you very, very much. I will tell you that the work that you did for No Kings on No Kings Day put us right over. And we got in that day, one day, I'm going to tell you how many signatures we got in that one day. Think about it. 1,200 signatures in that one day. So thank you to all of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. All right, Collin Mays, why don't you come up, introduce yourself?
Thanks, Carl. Appreciate it. Good morning, everybody. Is it still morning? Is it afternoon now? It's like mid-morning, right? Yes. Well, I'm glad to be here with you today. Happy to introduce myself. My name is Collin Mays, running for the 11th Congressional District here. And I wanted to let you know a few things about me before I even get into why I'm running. The first thing is that I'm a huge Red Wings fan. You cannot be from Detroit, Metro Detroit, and not be a Red Wings fan, right? We are a hockey town, and we're doing pretty good so far. So, big Red Wings fan. I also love pineapple upside down cake. It's a guilty pleasure of mine. Big dessert guy. And I'm proud to be from Oakland County, West Bloomfield to be exact, K through 12 schools, Ely Elementary, Orchard Lake Middle School, West Bloomfield High School. And from there went on to Western Michigan University, got my bachelor's in political science. Go Broncos. Who said that? Go Broncos. We don't have any Chippewas in here, do we? Yeah, I knew it was coming. Yeah. That's okay. That's okay. We all make mistakes. And then I went on to Oakland University to receive my master's in public administration. Grizzlies. Go Grizzlies. I'm not a career politician, but I am a trained public administrator. I've worked my career working for local municipalities and economic, workforce, and community development. During a period of time in my career, I worked for Michigan Works, created 6 apprenticeship programs, which led to direct jobs, everything from IT to advanced manufacturing to robotics to healthcare. I'm running for Congress in the 11th Congressional District because I care deeply about the future of our country. I care deeply about preserving public education, proud product of public education. I care deeply about the future of Medicare. 2021, I had the honor of my lifetime serving as the chairperson for the Alzheimer's Walk here in Metro Detroit. We raised a lot of money. We touched a lot of lives. But the one thing that I was taken away with was so many people came up to me and said, I don't know what to do with my mom, with my dad, with my grandparent. The cost to take care of them is astronomical. And if I take them to a living facility, that's astronomical as well. Things have only gotten worse. So I care about what's going to be the future of longevity in our community, what's going to be the future of our senior population. I'm also concerned about housing affordability. I mean, all of my friends are scratching our heads wondering, will we ever be able to own a home? And if you take out a loan from your parents, oh yeah, they want it back. So I'm concerned about that. So many reasons why I'm running for the 11th Congressional District. Again, not a career politician, just a friend, a neighbor, and a fixer. And I'm running on a new day here in the Democratic Party. So much of the time that I've seen, we are always playing defense. It's time to play offense. And I'm here introducing myself. I'm sure you're going to see a lot more of me over the coming months. Thank you for the opportunity and thank you for the time. I'll be in the back here. I do have petitions if you're interested in signing one. Happy to talk with you further. And remember, new ways with Collin Mays. Thank you.
He's got to have that good catchphrase. All right, anybody left candidates from federal, state? Come on up. All right, so federal, state, Whitgo County, come on up. Yeah, don't speak.
Hello, my name is James Huddleston, and I am here on behalf of my wife, Nicole Sophia Calhoun Huddleston. She is currently hosting a mock trial for some 7th and 8th graders at some location in Pontiac, but Nicole is always busy, always working. I'm like, go to bed. You take on so much, but I'm here on her behalf. Nicole ran in 2024, so she's going to be running for Oakland County Circuit Court Judge, and for the in August of 2026. And so I just wanted to share that with you. I will be in the back, and just to be brief. So if you want to talk more about Nicole and her values and her beliefs, more than happy to discuss. I do have petitions to be signed. So just thanking you in advance for having us here today. And that is me being brief.
All right, I think we're down to city commission and council. Right? Am I missing anybody else? Oh, I'm sorry, Natalie. I'm sorry, Natalie. Come on. Of course.
Thank you. Just quick campaign update. I am the state rep. I'm running for state senate. It's Natalie Price. We just had our quarter report, and thanks to many of you, we exceeded our goal. We raised over $70,000 this quarter. I'm really proud of that. Thank you all for pitching in. We are now officially being designated by the Lansing Press as probably the most expensive primary in the state. So I got a lot of work to do, and I'm grateful for your help. This quarter, the focus is going to be on house party. So I wanted to thank Paul and Claire for very generously planning and offering to do a house party. We have 6 set up. I've got one I'm going to right from here this afternoon in Ferndale. If you have a network that does not overlap dramatically with Paul and Claire's, please go to my website and sign up to host a house party. There's no minimum donation required. I will just want to get in front of as many neighbors and friends and family to make my pitch, earn their support, and help raise the funds that I'll need to be successful. We will also have a completely free meet and greet coming up in Pleasant Ridge, and I pulled up the date because we just said it. Flyers will be going out shortly, but that will be on Saturday, November 22nd, 10 a.m. at the Gainsborough Park in Pleasant Ridge around a fire pit with donuts and cider. So please share the flyer far and wide. Help me get some new people to come out and get to know me. Thank you.
Thank you, Natalie. Remember, candidates, anybody who wants to get anything, an event coming up in our next email, which will be going out this week, make sure you send it to royaloakdemocrat@gmail.com. All right, I think, are we down now to council and commission members? All right, why don't we start with Royal Oak? Let's get Royal Oak guys up here. We got Paul Bastian and Rudy Gunn.
Hello, I'm Paul Bastian, running for Royal Oak City Commission. You may recognize me from my many appearances in your mailbox. So there's not a whole lot to be said that hasn't already been said, and I know we're running long. So first things first, there's some thanks that need to go out to some people that haven't necessarily been thanked yet. Carl Laubach and Mike James, please applause. They have been organizing the Get Out the Vote effort and just have been ridiculously helpful to our campaign. We cannot thank you enough. My campaign started probably about September last year with my very first conversation with a sitting city commissioner, that was Sharlan Douglas. Thank you, because I knew if I could convince you that the rest of the dominoes would probably fall. Mike, Woody, Brandon, blame Shar.
All right, thanks, Paul. I'm going to be brief as well. I'm not same thanks that Paul just gave, but I also want to highlight that there's been a lot of discussion around the election next year, but equally and maybe more important is the election that's happening on Tuesday. That's the one that Paul and I are mostly concerned about. But I will quickly say, you know, I've been out knocking a lot of doors, had a relatively high number of contacts with folks, and the interactions have been very positive. And that's due in large part to the work that's been done in the city previously. The city is on a great path. We're a wonderful city with wonderful leadership, but good governance does take time, but it takes good people with good values, making good choices to make positive changes in their community. The current commissioners and mayor spoke to some of the things that have already been happening in the city. I believe Paul and I have those same qualities of having good values, good morals, good education and experience in terms of being able to make some of those good decisions to make sure that our community stays strong. So if you haven't yet, please vote on Tuesday for the team that we know will win, and make sure you tell 10,000 of your closest friends to do this. Thank you.
Woody and I are sitting at a table right over there. Do we still need help with Get Out the Vote efforts? Literally all we need you to do is hang flyers on doorknobs. If you would like to help, we would appreciate it. Sign up at the table where Brandon is now sitting. Thank you.
And also, if you cannot get out to door hang, we also have a phone bank. So anybody who wants to, you could also sign up at that table right there. All right, candidates for Clawson City Council. Come on up.
Hi, everyone. My name's Heather Rinkevich, surrounded by some of our other new faces here in Clawson. Thank you all for being here today. We're so excited to have Royal Oak in the house. My parents were born and raised in Royal Oak, and they set down their roots here in Clawson. I was born and raised here. If you told me a year ago I'd be standing in front of you, never would have dreamed it. I was inspired in March of this past year to get engaged here at the local level. Kept hearing those words, it starts local, it starts local, it starts local. We heard about a special election here in Clawson that was going to be held, essentially overturning part of our city charter that we all voted on in 2023 to expand our city council, to get us more representation that we deserved. That hadn't been updated in almost 100 years, expanding us from 5 council persons to 7 council persons. Our current council wanted to limit that, keep it at 5. So we fought back. We started a political action committee. And in May, we had just this amazing grassroots, nonpartisan, we reached across the aisle. We had both parties. I have signs in yards right now as I stand here with next to Trump signs. So, and I'm pretty progressive. I don't like being put in a box. But Sue can attest to this. We're getting calls like about where we're at. But here in Clawson, we have a moving, dynamic population. So we have to be able to speak to both sides. And in May, we saw that movement. We saw voter turnout like we've never seen in a special election and a non-millage election. And we're hoping to keep that momentum going. So getting the word out to vote. If anybody here is from Clawson, please vote. Please tell your neighbors to vote. I mean, you guys are our neighbors. You're part of our community in Royal Oak. Obviously, there's a lot of shared community. We border you all. I'm on the south side of Clawson. I walk 2 blocks south and I'm in Royal Oak. Please share, get the word out to vote. It is a historic election. We have a 7-member council. We have 6 open seats. This is a game changer. It could change the whole dynamic of our council and the way the city of Clawson is governed. So please, it's so important. We want to, if nothing else, I just want to see voter turnout change. That's been so important to me as someone who got behind Clawson Voices. And again, just vote. Voting is a right we've got to hold on to. So just vote, please. So I'm going to pass it on. We have so many new faces running too. That's something else Sue mentioned. We've got Alec and Scott, but there's several other young voices that couldn't make it today. There's Meredith Peltonen, Aiden O'Rourke, Loris Lewinsky. What else am I missing? There's so many new Georges. He's been on council before, but there's newer voices that are coming in. And the demographics have changed so much in Clawson. Average age of a resident is 41 and a half years old in Clawson. I grew up here. That was mind blowing to me when we were doing the special election. So anyway, I'm going to pass this over to Alec. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to say, to echo sort of what Heather said. Get out there and vote. I think it's very important. We have an opportunity in our little city with a big heart to really bring new faces, new ideas, and a lot of great things. I grew up in Berkeley, Michigan. Clawson is very similar to Berkeley. And so when my wife and I were looking for a place to live, Clawson sort of became home. And it's been my home for the last 5 years, and I'm very happy to be able to serve it. I do a lot within the community, and I'm looking forward to continuing that no matter the outcome on Tuesday. I'm just here to fight for what's right, and I hope that you guys can get out there. And if anybody wants to have a conversation with me who's from Clawson, please feel free. I know we only have a couple of days until the election, but it's important. I think one-on-ones are very important. So thank you.
And I'm Scott Manning, the pastor of this place and also at St. Luke's in Rochester Hills. I want to make one correction on who is welcome to use this facility. We're open to nonprofits, but you must not violate the social principles of the United Methodist Church. So the Turning Point folks will never be using this facility. One of our foundational pieces and one of my foundational pieces is diversity, equity, and inclusion are not dirty words. They are a foundational piece. I grew up in the land of Bill Schuette, so forgive me for being in that red district where he is from. And until living in Clawson, all of my Michigan experience has been in hard red districts. So it's refreshing to be here. I ran for a state Senate race in 1994 against the Senate Finance Chair, Joanne Emmons, who was the queen of mean, in a district where Democrats only had a 10% base. And happy to say I took 35% in the general. That was not easy. This campaign here in Clawson has been one of opening up possibilities. It's been a rough campaign, particularly in the mayoral's race. There are 6 open seats. However, there really is the potential of 7 open seats, and only one person running this year is guaranteed a spot after the election, and that's Sue, whether she's mayor or mayor pro tem. She's the only one that is guaranteed a spot. And we hope, we pray, and we're looking to see 6 faces to come along with her for a vision for the city. There are 3 people with Scott in their name running. So if you're in Clawson, forget about the first names, look to the last names, and if you can remember Peyton and Eli, you can remember me, Manning. And so I hope you'll see that the vision for inclusion, for diversity, for equity, to make sure that we have affordable housing. And affordable housing does not mean you get a studio for $2,000 a month. I lived in an apartment in Washington Township, and thankfully the church moved me to a parsonage here in Clawson. But the housing in that apartment in Washington Township, the last year I was there, was over $35,000 for 1 year. $35,000 for 1 year. And the costs here are not that much different. We need affordable housing. We need city and education partnerships. We need respect for a diverse community. We need people who will come to the table to do strategic planning, which I helped in Montcalm County, not Macomb, Montcalm, Greenville, Land of Meyer, helped with strategic planning countywide. Systemic strategic planning for education, healthcare, environment, government services, law enforcement, all those pieces. We need that at the city, as well as at the county and the state. And so I bring that experience in 9 years of serving in public service. I served on 2 different boards of education, was elected one of the youngest ever to a board of education in hardcore red country. And so it's refreshing to be in blue or purple territory. And I hope those of you who are in Clawson or know somebody in Clawson will get them out to vote. We need your help. We need your support. It's an historic election. And that word gets thrown around, but truly for Clawson, this is an historic opportunity for a seismic change. Not for instability, not for tearing things down, but for building up a city that even more will live to the vision that we have here, or the motto, a little city with a big heart. Our little postage stamp town has a lot to offer, and we need your support next week.
Thank you, guys. All right, did every candidate for office that is here wanted to speak get to speak? All right, about to close it out. I got some quick things for you guys. This coming Saturday, November 8th, is a 2.2 mile ruck march in Royal Oak. It's being done by the Royal Oak Veterans Committee. I have some information in the next email about that so you guys can get involved. Veterans Day is November 11th. There's events going on in both cities of Royal Oak and Clawson. November Social Night will be right here at Whiskey Taco Foxtrot on November 20th, 7 p.m. Club t-shirts. Deb is selling club t-shirts. They're $20 or $25 for double XLs. At the December meeting, I have two things that we're gonna be doing. We're gonna be collecting for two different charities at our December meeting, and I'm gonna have all the details in our next email. One is for Gleaners. That's gonna be a fund that we can all just donate on our phones, but we're gonna have a goal for our next meeting for that. That's being set up as we speak. And then Mittens for Detroit, if you guys are involved in Indivisible at all, they spoke at their last meeting. It's, we need brand new, durable, not dollar store quality mittens and gloves for all ages, children through adult. Bring those to our December meeting. Again, more information will be in our next email. And don't forget, before you leave, we have candidates for office that are being elected, that are up for election this coming Tuesday. Everyone get out there. We need door hangers. We need people to make phone calls. We need people to get out there and march door to door. Contact all these Clawson people, contact our Royal people. Our Royal people have signed up over there. Please get involved. We got to keep our cities blue, our county blue, and our state blue. All right? And it happens with everyone in this room. All right? Motion to adjourn. Adjourn. We are adjourned. Thank you so much, guys. I do need help cleaning up. We need stacking chairs and moving tables. All right, good. All right, good. Good.
Hey, you know what? I'm just thinking we need to get cool and sad.